Keith Moon was born on August 23, 1946 in Wembley, England. He was the drummer and a songwriter in the rock band called The Who. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990. He was in a band called the Beachcombers before joining The Who in 1964. He was a flamboyant, ferocious drummer who loved life and having a good time. His nickname was Moon the Loon. Lead singer Roger Daltrey said everything about Keith was extreme. He would trash hotel rooms, drum kits, and drive cars into pools. Sometimes he had too much of a good time. He got bored easily. He played pranks a lot. He went too far when The Who were on the Smothers Brothers TV show in 1967. He filled his bass drum with flash powder to make an explosion. He used way too much. Pete Townsend said his hearing was never the same after that explosion. Keith could drink alcohol and do drugs with the best of them. He passed out on stage a few times. He released a solo album in 1975. He appeared in several movies including That'll Be the Day, 200 Motels, Sextet, Stardust, the 1974 Son of Dracula, the Woodstock documentary, and The Who's Tommy. As the years went on, his drum kits became bigger and bigger. He was married once and had a daughter named Amanda. He died in 1978 from an overdose of prescription pills called Hemanevrin used to curb the withdrawal from alcohol. He was 32 years old. Bon Scott was born on July 9, 1946 in Scotland. His birth name was Ronald Scott. When he was 6 years old, his family moved to Australia. His nickname Bon came from his classmates. After dropping out of high school, he spent years doing various jobs and getting into trouble with the law. He wanted to join the Australian Army, but they said he was socially maladjusted. That makes perfect sense to me. He was in a coma for 3 days after driving drunk on a motorcycle and crashing. He was in 3 bands before joining AC/DC. He actually started out as their chauffeur, and they needed a replacement singer. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003. The 1979 album Highway to Hell was their most successful album in the Bon Scott era. My favorite Bon Scott song is probably Ride On from the album Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. I'm curious, what is your favorite song? He was married once and had no children. He died in 1980 from acute alcohol poisoning while sleeping in a car, according to the coroner's report, although some people have speculated other reasons. It was called Death by Misadventure. Their next album with new singer Brian Johnson, called Back in Black, was a tribute to Bon and went on to sell more than 50 million copies. He was 33 years old. John Bonham was born on May 31st, 1948 in England. He was the powerhouse drummer for one of the best rock bands to ever exist, Led Zeppelin. In my opinion, he's the greatest drummer of all time. Who do you think is the best? He was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995. Some of the drummers he influenced included Phil Collins, Dave Grohl, Mike Portnoy, Neil Peart, Tommy Lee, and Dave Lombardo, just to name a few. Do you have a favorite Zeppelin album? Mine is Houses of the Holy. He started playing drums at a young age. He was an apprentice carpenter with his dad after quitting high school at age 16. He was in a lot of bands that didn't last very long. After the Yardbirds broke up, he was talked into joining the new Yardbirds by his friend Robert Plant. They were previously in bands together called Band of Joy and the Crawling King Snakes. If you ever have time, check out the Band of Joy's cover of For What It's Worth, originally by Buffalo Springfield. They changed their name to Led Zeppelin and released their debut album in 1969. Bonzo hit the drums harder than anyone, but he could change his style with ease. Here's a fun fact. He was Tony Iommi's best man when Tony first got married in 1973. He loved cars and had a nice collection. John was married once and had 2 children. His son Jason is also a talented drummer. John could drink alcohol with the best of them. It's estimated that leading up to his death, he consumed 40 shots of vodka. He died in 1980 after choking on his own vomit. He was so important to Led Zeppelin that they chose to break up rather than attempt to find a replacement. He was 32 years old. James Honeyman-Scott was born on November 4th, 1956 in England. He's known for being an original member, songwriter, backup singer, lead guitar, and keyboard player in the band called The Pretenders. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2005. His melodic, jangly guitar sound was a big part of their songs. He started taking piano lessons at age 7 and eventually moved to guitar. He was in several bands before being asked to join The Pretenders. He was friends with their bass player named Pete Farndon. They both had drug problems that were getting out of control. With songs like Stop Your Sobbing, Brass in Pocket, Up the Neck, and Kid, their debut album, which was released in 1980, is a classic. Their second album was also great. They seemed to have a bright future. He was married once and had no children. In 1982, James saw how bad Pete's heroin problem was and threatened to quit if Pete wasn't fired. Sadly, 2 days after Pete was let go, James died from heart failure from a cocaine overdose. Back on the Chain Gang was written in memory of James. He was 25 years old. Pete Farndon was born on June 12, 1952 in England. He is known for being the original bass player in the band The Pretenders from 1978 to 1982. He played on their first 2 albums. He was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2005. He played in 2 bands before The Pretenders called Cold River Lady and the Bushwhackers. Chrissy Hynde put together the band. Speaking about Pete, she said, "Technically, he wasn't any kind of great musician, but he had real heart. Like in boxing terms, he could win the fight on heart alone. And he had a great energy, born of a kind of desperation. He wore biker clothing on stage and samurai gear. Eventually, his drug use spiraled out of control. Their guitarist named James Honeyman-Scott threatened to quit the band if Pete wasn't fired. 2 days after Pete was fired, James died from a cocaine overdose. Pete tried to put together a new band, but he died in April of 1983. He was found dead in his bathtub. He lost consciousness and drowned after a heroin overdose. He was 30 years old. Graham Parsons was born on November 5, 1946 in Winter Haven, Florida. He is known for being a passionate singer, songwriter, and musician. They say he invented country rock. He was very influential for the short amount of time he was on the planet. He briefly attended Harvard University to study theology, but decided music would be his future. He was around a lot of other great musicians in his various bands, including the Byrds, but he never had massive success. He became friends with Keith Richards, and he lived the rock and roll lifestyle. After being fired from the Byrds for refusing to perform for segregated audiences in South Africa, he helped form the band the Flying Burrito Brothers before going solo. He died from a morphine overdose in 1973. His body was stolen by his manager and a friend because Graham wished to be cremated and spread in Joshua Tree, California. They set the coffin on fire in the desert. They were caught, fined $750, and Graham was flown to Louisiana for burial as originally planned. He was 26 years old. Riley Gale was born on April 30th, 1986 in Dallas, Texas. He's known for being the charismatic singer in the thrash metal band Power Trip. They played in Seattle in 2018 when I lived there, but for some reason I didn't go. Lesson learned. His band issued this statement: "He touched so many lives through his lyrics and through his huge heart. He treated everyone he met as a friend, and he always took care of his friends." After graduating from the University of North Texas, he formed Power Trip in 2008. They released 2 studio albums and 3 EPs. The live version of their song Executioner's Tax was nominated for a Grammy for Best Metal Performance. Riley sang on the Body Count song called Point the Finger. He wasn't afraid to share his political beliefs. Power Trip was supposed to tour Europe with Lamb of God, but sadly it never happened. Riley died in August of 2020 from a fentanyl overdose. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is between 50 and 100 times more potent than morphine, in case you didn't know. He was 34 years old.